Good evening, pedophiles. If you're just joining us now, hogs worldwide have gone to the polls to cast their votes in the grand final of the 2023 Kill James Bond 16 James double bondation between Master and Commander and Starship Troopers. Joining us live now is Abigail Thorne, reporting from a packed polling station. Abigail, what's the feeling on the ground about this? How are the voters responding to their first ever democratic election?
Thank you, Devon. As you can see behind me, a lot of people are very excited. There's a lot of tension in the air. There has been some fighting over the course of the evening, but the police have mainly kept the hogs in line. Everyone is now just waiting with bated breath for the results of this first election and hoping that it can bring peace to the region.
Fantastic. Thank you. Feel free to stay on the line for the next guest. But it's not all celebrations. While some scholars are hailing this election as a landmark victory for the historically unrepresented hogs who have previously lived under a total content dictatorship, there are fears that this democratic election may be anything but. Joining me is Alice Caldwell-Kelly. Now, Ms. Caldwell-Kelly, thank you for your time. You've been a UN election observer for well over a decade, and I believe you were earlier quoted as having called this the most blatant attempt at voter manipulation you've ever seen, both from influential hogs and even the hosts of the show itself. Would you care to expand on these comments?
That's right, Devon. I think ultimately the main takeaway from this is a clear attempt by the authorities to suppress the popular insurgent movement of Cars 2 Again.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we condemn the crimes of Cars 2 Again. They must have a role in any meaningful electoral process. There is no solution that does not include the possibility of Cars 2 Again. And by forestalling that, I worry that the chances of Cars 2 Again in some ways increase.
Very, very dire warning of things to come here. Thank you. Are any of these allegations true? Are these fears unfounded? Would these two final movies even be the two that were born out under a truly democratic process? We may never know. But if the exit polls are accurate, we may be about to see an episode of Kill James Bond about Master and Commander.
Ahoy! Avast! Welcome to an episode of Kill James Bond. I am Commodore Alice Caldwell-Kelly, joined, as always, by my subordinates, Captain Abigail Thorne and Sailing Master Devon.
Howdy. Oceans are now battlefields, baby!
I'm subordinate, apparently? That's new?
Yeah. Well, listen, I figured you would be fine with it. Master and Commander, it won a fair and totally unrigged process, as you alluded to earlier.
We certainly weren't quote tweeting everything, being like, do your
Master
duty,
and
men.
Commander.
Do you want to see a guillotine in Piccadilly? Things
Also,
like
some
this.
of the hogs might not be on Twitter. As a thank you for... you just might have no idea what the fuck we're talking about.
6 minutes of nonsense up front.
To celebrate 5 million downloads. 5 million downloads. We had an election on Twitter to choose the topic of our next episode, and you, whether you voted or not, whether the turnout was high or low, you voted Master and Commander the far side of the world.
We consider
You've
this to be binding.
legitimized this. Yes, that's right.
This was the main fear of Hog Republicans, is that we would use this to legitimize Master and Commander.
Yeah, and I hope you know what you've done, right? Because what you've done by voting for Master and Commander Far Side of the World is you have walked into a trap, right? On two levels. On one level, you've taken away the possibility of a live show with all of us in period naval costumes.
It's a shame, because I have that.
But on another,
I'd like it.
You have entered into this on the assumption that this was going to be, it's the Dudes Rock movie analysis. No. You have entered into the Thunderdome with the "it's not like the books" analysis. I will be talking for 3 hours uninterrupted. You cannot silence me. Why does Stephen Maturin not wear his characteristic periwig? It is an integral part of his character. It is iconic. It's like Aiden Pierce's cap. Everything about this movie is literally unwatchable. Has nothing to do with the O'Brien novels.
Also, dudes don't rock in this film. In fact, I think the very question this film is asking is, do dudes rock?
Oh, I have a thesis, and I'll say this thesis right up front. Americans cannot be trusted with this fucking movie, right? On God, they cannot, because it's regularly a thing on Twitter. It's regularly a thing that, like, this is why I got votes on Twitter. I think about the GQ article, why are so many guys obsessed with Master and Commander, right? Which is, it's like a dudes rock thing, right? No, I mean, partially, but no. I think the thesis of this movie is that dudes rock, but not always as they choose to. The rocking of the dudes is constrained by their material conditions, right?
Yes.
And sometimes the ways that the dudes rock are very, very compromised. Something which we as a feminist podcast are very familiar with. This is a masculine power fantasy in a lot of ways, and sort of grandiose, and it's a lot like James Bond.
I think you said very well before we started recording that the dudes, they do rock, but what was it you said? Male friendship makes inhuman conditions bearable.
Yes.
But
yes,
it also
male friendship
reproduces those inhuman conditions.
It reproduces the inhuman conditions, and it always does that with a body count. And that's what we're going to see over the next hour and a half and change, is male friendship makes it possible to survive the fucking oaken death machine, right? But so, Master and Commander.
Yes.
First of all, we've got to talk about the titles, because it's the first thing on screen. And man, I can't pretend these aren't really good.
It's a hard thing to start the movie with. It really is cool. I'm sorry.
Listen, it's all the exposition you need. And one of the reasons why the novels are so good, again, you have a counter on the side of the thing or something. One of the reasons why the novels are so good is because O'Brien never ever explains anything, right? And so he just he throws in some nautical terminology and never explains it. It explains stuff, but it's very, very spare about it. And so all you get at the beginning is, 1805, Napoleon is the master of Europe. Only the British fleet stands before him. Oceans are now battlefields.
Luke Skywalker is on Hoth. It's not called execution, it's called retirement, etc.
Yeah. Did I speak?
Well, this is the thing. You can contrast it with the Star Wars things, because the Star Wars things are much longer. They give you a bunch of information you don't need to know. And it's sort of like it loses pace. This keeps pace throughout, because
it's like a leftist meme. The Star Wars opening.
Yeah, and this rightist meme is how it feels to kill Frenchmen.
Yes, I happen to think that Star Wars is a good franchise.
I mean, the thing is,
I think
right?
Historically, it has been.
I think also we can't sleep on the other opening title, the one immediately after this, which introduces the ship, which is HMS Surprise, 28 guns, 197 souls, north coast of Brazil. Which, again, it sets up stuff in a way that you really, really need, as opposed to like every spy movie we watch where there's a big shot of the Eiffel Tower and then it goes Paris, France.
Yeah, this is a very minimalist setup here. You get purely what you need to know, which is this is a British ship. It is 1805. Napoleon is the master of Europe. The British ship is hunting a French privateer that is attempting to bring Napoleon's war into the Pacific Ocean, and their mission is to stop him.
Yes,
that's it.
The French privateer Acheron. Acheron, the river of woe in Greek mythology. By the way, this is not... Well, because they also changed it from the book. In the book, it's the Americans, and it's the War of 1812. This should be USS Norfolk.
Oh, my.
But they worried that in the course of adapting this is adapted from two of the novels, that they would lose the Americans if the Americans were the bad guys, which is a shame, because given the way that the French are depicted in this, and I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, me too, actually.
I think that a straight adaptation of this would have been one of a few things that could have really made Americans see outside themselves. And I think they've kind of been robbed of that. But so we begin in the ship, and...
Are you suggesting we're inflicting a hermeneutical injustice on Americans by allowing them to continue believing everyone believes they're the heroes?
Yeah, genuinely.
I think so.
But so we begin in the ship, and the ship sets are perfect, magnificent.
Yeah.
Dark, cramped, one of the first shots we get is like hanging bags of powder, and in quite a sort of O'Brien like move, it doesn't identify those. You're like, what the hell are those? No, that's the shit that's going to power all of the all of the fights later on.
It's also nice that we start in very early morning. It's not something a lot of people give thought to, is what time of day is it when your film starts. And it's nice that it's like the half hour just before everyone's waking up. So we get to see a little bit of the ship's routine and how things work as everybody is waking up. And they are entering a fog bank. The watchman reports that he maybe heard a bell. And there's this young officer called Warren who comes down, and we get to see everyone saluting the officers as they go past. There's this very clear divide between officers and enlisted men or sailors.
Yes.
Is that
and
right term?
It's sailors ratings, right? So here's the thing, right? We have our officer of the watch, who is assisted by another officer, and these are midshipmen. Midshipmen, I have to explain this here. Lots of countries are fucked up enough to have child soldiers, right?
Of course.
Only Britain is fucked up enough to produce child officers.
Yes.
Only Britain. That's what it says at the start.
That's right, because promotion in the Navy is based on seniority, and it's based on time in service, and it's very, very few promotions as you go up. There was an incentive to get your children into the Navy earlier and earlier. Not at all uncommon to be on the books at 9 and at sea at 12.
Well, yeah, we see it. We see it later on. There are children on board.
Yes, yeah, fully.
Who are not just they're playing, they are part of the Navy.
No, they are very junior officers.
What if they were at home at this point? They'd be in the mines or the fabric mills anyway. So kids are working right now. This is 1805.
Yeah. And I mean, you can ask plausibly some questions about. I mean, the British military still lets you join at, I believe, 16.
Yes, that is true.
Which it doesn't let you deploy until you're 17, I don't think. But even still,
About 17-year-olds is they're still minors.
Yeah, alarming. But yeah, so they're in the fog bank, and the officer of the watch is this midshipman Hollam.
Yes.
And Hollam believes that he sees a ship.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, right, and I'll get to this later, this is a film that is not really about how dudes rock. It's not even really about the thing that I said about social reproduction. It's in large part a horror story about command.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm interested in thinking about this as a film about command, because that was the thing that I wanted to do for a long time, right? Essential part of understanding Alice's psyche is I spent most of my teenage years thinking, okay, I'm going to be an army officer, right? And Hollam is this sort of tragedy of command. So,
Hollam.
Yeah.
He's watching the thing. He's like,
it's a dense fog bank. He's looking around. He gets the briefest glimpse of the Acheron. It could have been anything. It could have been a shape moving.
Yeah.
Everyone's make the call, and he's going, fuck, it's better to make it.
I have the drop.
Yeah.
I can't be certain. You're officer of the watch. Hollam, you must make a decision.
I mean, the first thing we see him do is, in a perfectly understandable way, is hesitating. And this is the thing. To make the right decision is a question of training. To make a decision is a question of leadership.
And he doesn't make one.
He
doesn't make the call. It's the guy who's saying that to him.
His buddy makes the call.
Yeah, Calamy. Calamy, who's another midshipman, makes the call. They beat to quarters.
Which is Navy for get ready, I assume, based on what we see.
Wake the lads.
Yeah. They wake up the lads.
Shields up, red alert. I put a lot of this in Star Trek language to help me understand it. So this is kind of like yellow alert.
Yeah. They go to yellow alert.
That's right.
And they wake up the boys. Most notably, they wake up the captain.
The biggest boy of all.
Here's a boy
Captain
I like to
Aubrey.
see.
And the contrast here in the way that he moves, his bearing, is throughout, I would say, if this is a word, officerly, right?
Yeah, it's a fucking good performance from Russell Crowe. You do occasionally have to hand it to him.
It's like absolutely confident. And so Aubrey comes up to the foredeck, and first of all, he reassures Holland that he did the right thing, even though he's not certain.
Yeah. He's like, it's better to be ready than to be caught completely with our pants down here. It's fine.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we see that he looks into the fog bank. Not sure. Bit dubious. And then you get the flash of cannon fire, which is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I don't think a film has got canon as well as Master and Commander
100%.
has.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be corrected if anyone wants to say to me, like, you know, Sergei Bondarchuk did a better job with Waterloo. Sure, maybe, but for this, I think no, really, really, the sound design alone.
Yeah,
it's good
very,
because
very
you see
good.
the explosion long before the cannonball hits you because it's this heavy bit of fucking iron that's coming, and like they do a really good job of making sure you see that a lot of these injuries are shrapnel based. It's not just getting hit by the cannonball. There's like splinters. Like it's hitting a wooden ship and you are stood within it. Like explosions.
It's fucking cool.
We do see that one of the children, the youngest midshipman, I believe, Blakeney, who looks about 14.
Yeah,
if that.
Yeah, it's sort of like we like focus in on his eye as he's like pushed down into cover. This is going to be an important thing. As like Blakeney is like a witness to this stuff. It's kind of like a Bildungsroman in a lot of ways.
He's meant to be a kind of like innocent guy.
Yeah. Who is introduced to the world of Dude's Rock by having a bunch of people like butchered with shrapnel in front of him, and he gets like 2 pieces through the arm.
Yeah, he gets his arm like fucked up. And we also see down in the infirmary our surgeon on board is Paul Bettany, guy we'd love to see.
That's a fucking guy I love to see, baby.
Oh, okay. I have some problems.
Oh.
So Paul Bettany, he's a fine actor. He does a great job with this role, right? The books, it's not like the books. So Stephen Maturin, the character, thank you, the character that he's playing, it doesn't try to like grapple with that at all, because there's a few things there, one of which I'll get into later, but the main thing about this, and I want to say this early, is Stephen Maturin is meant to be ugly. He is meant to be like physically repulsive. It's like a key part of his character. He has to live in a separate house from his wife because he keeps bringing dead animals home to dissect. He's an ugly dude. And this is the thing, right? Paul Bettany, not an ugly man, not an easy man to make look ugly if you were trying to. And I think partially you have this desire to make them relatable and photogenic, but I think also there's this kind of thing where even as early as 2003, it was not possible to make a living and get the kind of roles as an ugly actor that it might have been in the past.
Yeah, right? True.
I think there was this niche for character actors who were like very strongly featured in a way that, is not photogenic, is not necessarily appealing, and it's not like it's not an insult, right?
No.
I think it's genuinely like affected our kind of our view of ourselves, our sense of self, that we don't really see that on screen so much. If you were Pete Postlethwaite, say today, I think you might struggle to achieve the same kind of prominence.
Yeah. That's why we get like 1960s woman dysphoria, right? We keep noticing in old films like people don't fucking look like that on screen anymore.
A lot of the thing is a lot of modern movies, and I'm going to be very careful with my wording here, a lot of modern movies are quite... They've got a big cast and all of them have to look like leading men. So the character actor is a very, very, like, it's dying away as a
That's
role.
why they're all getting older. You know?
Fingers crossed they're going to bring that back. That would be really useful for me.
I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, one of the things about Stephen Maturin as a character in the novels is the fact that he is ugly, the fact that he is repulsive, but the fact that he is also, as we later then see, profoundly decent and loyal and brave and brilliantly intelligent. And the fact that his friends are sort of like required to like see these things in him and still like, confront the fact that this guy smells bad as hell. Like he's wearing the same coat covered in blood all the time. That's a really interesting piece of character work all round. And I think we lose the ability to relate to that when we have this expectation that everybody, even the,
even the ship's surgeon on like just a nothing vessel in 1805 is going to be like a 10 out of 10 smoke show.
Yeah. So he's treating casualties, and
we got a red alert and we ready phasers.
There's an interesting little bit I want to pull out here, which is they don't use quite as much fake blood as they could do.
Yes,
but they use an interesting substitute, which is Maturin is like, he asks for more sand on the floor of his cabin because it's getting soaked with blood. I really like that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in a later scene, they use just like spreading sand on the floor as shorthand for like there's about to be blood, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
You can just be elusive with this stuff. It's fantastic.
But the boys take a pasting from the Acheron. The rudder is shot out. They're taking on water. They're fucked basically. So they decide to hide in the fog bank, and they have to like get the men in lifeboats and like tow the ship by rowing it to run away. Which I was like, fuck, wow, that must have been like difficult.
Yeah.
And throughout, Aubrey's elan, his charm is infectious, right?
Yeah, he smiles when he says to the younger officer, he's like, run up the colours. It's like
He's like, let's
yeah,
go.
he's fucking enjoyed himself. Like
he's having a great time. Yeah. Meanwhile, poor Blakeney with like shrapnel through his arm, he sees like this horrid old sailor's giant hold fast knuckle tattoos.
Hell
as
yeah.
he goes in.
First of all.
Yeah.
yeah, this is Mr. Brain Surgery, who we'll get to later.
We'll get to, because he also gets injured. So yeah, they escape into the fog bank by the skin of their teeth. And Aubrey kind of debriefs with Maturin, not his, any of his officers, but his surgeon, because they're friends.
And the vibe is, well, we got our asses kicked, but at least we're still alive. Like, it could have gone worse.
It's sort of a post-match analysis scene where they're like, we got fucked here, boys. No shame in it. We got absolutely royally fucked.
He's like, what's the butcher's bone? It's like, like 9 dead, 27 wounded. And
they have this officers' dinner where they're like, okay, well, we got our asses kicked. The French have a tougher ship, longer guns. She's really fucking good. They also had the advantage of the wind direction.
Wind gauge, yes.
Yeah. And so we've established that like Brits are an underdog, and the vibe from the other officers is, well, at least we're alive. Let's just kind of limp home and like cut our losses here. And then Russell Crowe's no, boys.
No, absolutely not. But so the thing about the conversation with Maturin first though is that Aubrey kind of suspects that they've been betrayed, right? The reason why the Acheron was able to find them was because of like human intelligence, shall we say?
Yeah, this is interesting.
Maturin says,
well, the French have their spies in England and elsewhere. As do we.
And this is the thing. This movie was robbed of having sequels. This is the one thing that like dudes rock people on Twitter are right about, because this is a kind of sly bit of foreshadowing that engages with another part of Stephen Maturin's character in the books, which is that he is fairly often a spy, right? This is not something they do in this movie because they don't get the chance. It's an aspect of his character that they don't adapt, that I think it signifies that they wanted to later. And I have some thoughts about, because the thing is, right, this movie is in large part about masculinity and like as a form of like service, as a form of fidelity to empire. And the central tension here is between Aubrey's sense of duty, which is violent, martial, loyal, and Maturin's, which is humanistic, naturalistic, pacifistic even.
And at times, like, almost insubordinate. In fact, openly insubordinate.
Absolutely. We'll get to that. But this is the thing. One of the things that the novel does to make that, the novels do to make that interesting, is that Maturin is compromised by empire too. He is like also in its service in a more direct and more directly violent way than being a surgeon. And this movie, I think, in not doing that, it's made itself a purer kind of like distilled version of it. But it also it loses a bit of sort of moral complexity.
I have to say I have a different reading on that scene. Because I'd not having had that context.
Sure.
I read this as like, okay, Captain Aubrey is like, he's pissed off and he's like, somebody must have betrayed us. He's kind of hot-headed and he immediately decides we're going to stay and we're going to go after the Acheron. Over the course of the film, one of the things he learns in his character arc is patience and trusting. And I think this is a nice way of showing us at the start. He's like, oh, well, there's no way they could have beaten us in a sort of fair fight. Somebody must have set us up. Like, we got to fucking get those Frenchy bastards. And like, I think that's nice. Sure. So the plan is we're gonna keep going after them, even though we're outmatched. But in order to do that, Mr. Blakeney needs to have his arm cut off.
Mr. Blakeney. Yes. All the officers are referred to as Mr. Surname. Blakeney has 2 pieces of shrapnel through his arm, which therefore needs amputated, which is done viscerally.
He's
and
awake.
Horribly. Yes. And
This is the scene that they set up by like they put Blakeney. He's talking to his mate, who I've got the name of somewhere.
Higgins?
Maybe
Calamy?
Oh, Calamy.
that's the one. The slightly older one that he's mates with, and he's like talking about how like if you die, when they sew you up in your hammock, they'll pass the final needle through your nose just to double check that you aren't dead. And he's like going, "Hey, if I die from like having my arm broken here, don't let them put that shit through my nose, man."
Yeah.
And we cut straight from that to him being put down on the table and like the sand being spread around the table, and you understand that something very bloody is about to happen to this poor lad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they cut off his arm.
It builds tension really well.
He survives.
The thing about this, GQ says, overall, the masculinity of Master and Commander is overwhelmingly positive and wholesome.
Wrong.
Incorrect.
Did you watch the movie?
Any nostalgia for the traditionalism in the movie is less reactionary and more about the healthy male bonding between the characters. No,
The lack of healthy male bonding is the plot of this film.
Actively kills like half of the guys that don't die directly in the gunfight is like bad male bonding. And we'll get to this very
much the villain of the
later.
film, actually.
Yeah. So you see this boy being sort of like brutalized into manhood, and the male friendship here, such as it is Maturin being sympathetic and kind to him.
Yeah.
And sort of like reassuring him. Which, again, this is the thing. Like, yes, it makes the process of having your arm cut off more bearable, but it's still like that's the guy who's cutting off the fucking arm.
He's still he praises him by calling him brave.
Yes,
specifically.
Yes.
Which is like the virtue that you need to continue being of service to Empire. Then we get a very nice scene where the captain comes and he gives young Mr. Blakeney a book about Nelson, who of course also lost an arm. It's this like really nice acting from Russell Crowe here that he is obviously concerned on a personal level for Mr. Blakeney, but like tries to sort of hide it and keep it buttoned up, which it's just really nice.
Yeah, it's quite awkward.
It is.
He doesn't quite know what to say to him.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to the fucking child who's had his fucking arm blown off in service of you? Like,
if you don't want to say I'm sorry that happened, it's very difficult to find something to say, because he doesn't really say that, because he like ultimately he's kind of not sorry that happened.
Yeah. It's like Blakeney sort of looks at him with his one arm, and he's like, "Will you condemn Hamas?"
Yeah. He refuses.
So the cult of Nelson also something we'll get to.
Yes.
But
my next note says Paul and Russell play gay music together.
Oh wait, hold on. First, before we got to fix up the ship a little bit.
That happens while the ship is being fixed.
This is important too. That we go from Blakeney getting his arm cut off to the figurehead getting like recarved.
Yes.
And there's also a bit in the wardroom earlier where Aubrey is like, "No, we're going to go after the Acheron." Where Maturin says, "Well, isn't the ship old?" And Aubrey says, "Well, would you call me and like an aged man of war?" This movie is not particularly subtle about the idea that man and ship are one, right? The ship and the boat. In fact, it's one of the officers even says of Aubrey that he's served on the ship for so long, he has like so much blood embedded in it. It's part of his family.
Yeah, it might as well be a relation. That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, my only note here is most modern men wouldn't be able to repair their vessel at sea nowadays. And they do, like, they repair it at sea. That the decision is made that rather than going back, rather than putting to land to like get trees to repair your shit up, they're just going to use like wood from about the place, and they do a phenomenal job of it. You see like craftsmen at work, like carving the decorations into this little, like, so it can slot back into the place. And like
some of the damage control. Some of the damage control stuff is still current in the Royal Navy of today. They're like sort of patching a leak with like oakum and like 2 wedges of soft wood, still absolutely current. You can see it on YouTube. But yeah, so
and I really recommend it because it's cool as fuck.
It is cool as fuck. But we spend some time in the captain's cabin, where he is playing the violin while Maturin is playing the cello, and them playing together is
gay,
romantic.
Gay.
It's gay.
Yes.
It's gay.
Gay. It's homosexual.
It is. Yeah, it's absolutely romantic. It's absolutely intimate. There is one bit of like cinematographic detail I like here, which is it cuts to like a long shot, like tracking around the anchor underwater
Yeah, interesting
as they're
shot.
playing. And I think that was genuinely inspired just to sort of like pull back a bit, right? And
Such a
to
nice,
sort of
well
give
shot.
you the like context of like, yeah, this whole closed system of this ship, you know, is sort of like being like sort of undergirded by the like intellectual relationship between these two men.
Yeah, really nice.
Also, they're fucking on each other.
Yeah.
And
At this point, I have a question that perhaps you can answer, Alice. And the note is, what is the status of the black crew members? Because we do see, usually in crowd shots, there are one or two members of the crew on board who are black. Only one of them, who is unnamed, ever has any lines. He has like 2 lines later on. But we are in 1805, right?
We are 2 years before slavery first became illegal in part of the British Empire. So black crew members are not slaves here, but they're also not free because sailors are not free. This is something that we'll get to with the sort of discipline stuff later on. But in general, these are men who have been press ganged, possibly from other ships, possibly from their homes. We don't know. And they are under military discipline. So they are sort of not free in that sense, but there isn't a formal racial distinction here, no.
Interesting. There's also a blink and you'll miss it moment where the captain is writing a letter to his wife. You'll have to pause the screen to find out her name, but she's
Sophie Villiers. So Sophie is not a character. She is a locket and a name on a letter. Again, this movie should have had about 50 sequels because like novels, people think, oh, it's like Master and Commander. It's just going to be boats. No, it is in large part, but about half of them are sort of like on land doing Regency novel shit. You could slot these guys into Jane Austen in places.
I will say that is one of my major complaints with the plot and pacing of this movie can be directly sourced from the fact that it is 3 novels out of 20 being adapted, because there are no less than 2 points where you can really tell that one novel ends and another has just started, because the stakes get hard reset.
Yes, yeah.
And when you know that it's adapted from Freemoot, it becomes very difficult to not spot that.
So they trade with some native Brazilians. I'm comfortable calling them Brazilians, but for clarity.
Yeah.
These are the only women in
there
the
are
movie.
2 or 3 women here. Don't get attached. They are the only women you will see the entire time.
Yes.
Apart from the figurehead of the ship.
Yes.
Who is the only woman who gets a close-up. But yeah, so these women... That's true. These women are sort of... they exist to highlight the absence of women and the distance of Sophie Villiers from Jack Aubrey. And then we move on. We get another wardroom scene, and I engage perhaps the single finickiest historical accuracy note I've ever given.
No, I want to hear this though, because I'm interested.
I said this, and I got the reply back: "Are you an 18th century naval officer?" in the body of 21st century trans woman. So they do the toast. They don't do the loyal toast first, which is bullshit. But it's to wives and sweethearts, may they never meet, which means it's a Saturday. Interesting. Could have done each film with a different one of those. My favorite is Thursdays, to a bloody war or a sickly season. But in the course of doing this, listen, there's a toast for every day of the week.
Seriously, I thought that was organic banter.
Dude.
You're telling me that telling me Captain Aubrey's shit is pre-written by someone else? My man's just copying the Wikipedia page? Like H-Bomb's doing 4 hours on Captain Jack stealing his fucking patter? Like, come on.
It is set by day.
That's so funny.
They've changed them so it's woke now, right? But
really?
Okay, yeah, now tell me about all
tell
of
me,
this.
Tell me the woke ones. Tell me the woke ones.
I'm so fascinated by this.
Off the top of my head, I may get these the wrong way around.
You can't complain if she does.
Monday is our ships at sea. Tuesday is our men, which because of woke, because they let birds in the Navy now, is like our sailors, I think.
Yuck.
That's cool.
Wednesday is ourselves, with the reply because no one else will take an interest in our welfare.
It's just randomly quoting the Combahee River Collective in the royal name.
Yeah. Thursday is a bloody war or a sickly season because promotion in the Navy is always based on the guy in front of you dying, and a bloody war kills off a bunch of junior officers, and a sickly season kills off a bunch of aged senior officers. Friday is a willing foe and serum. Saturday is wives and sweethearts may they never meet. And then Sunday is absent friends. That's not the big thing that I'm objecting to here.
I know, but that was so nice, and thank you.
Appreciate that.
You're so welcome. The thing that I'm objecting to here, Captain Howard, the commander of Royal Marines aboard, correctly passes the port decanter to his left, but he lifts the decanter from the table. Literally unwatchable, even if he's not supposed to be a naval officer. Unacceptable conduct in a naval mess.
What should you do? What is the correct answer?
Pick that shit up.
You slide it along, so you can lift it to pour, and you pour for the person to your right, but you slide it across the thing because you're on a ship and the decanter is gonna you're gonna drop it or it's gonna fall and break something.
Oh, of course.
It's a harmless naval tradition. So
we also get a little bit of Nelson here because
some more Nelson.
Somebody says, "Yo, Captain Aubrey, you met Nelson, right? Like one-armed dude, Trafalgar, that dude." And they're like, "Could you tell us a story about him?" And he's like, yeah, he was weird. He told me to pass the salt, and also his patriotism kept him warm."
Yeah, he does a big showmanship thing about this. It's clear that he's been thinking and practicing this, where he's just like, I met him twice at dinner. The first time when he spoke to me, he looked at. Actually, no, he just goes, "I met him twice at dinner." I served under him at
the Nile.
The Nile, thank you. As a junior officer, no older than you are yourself now, Mr. Blakeney. And then eventually one of his other coxswains of some description goes like, "Hey man, can you just give us an anecdote about this?" And he goes, the first time we were at dinner and he looked across the table at me and he said, "Aubrey, you passed me the salt." And everyone laughs, and the second time he gets real sentimental about it. And he's like, he was telling me a story about how someone offered him a blanket on his ship, and he said that he doesn't need it because he's warmed by his zeal for king. And for anyone else, you'd go, "Shut the fuck up." But for Nelson, you almost believed it, and everyone's enraptured by this.
Yeah. And this is the thing, leadership in the thing is it's a function of self-belief, right? And self-confidence. And Nelson's self-belief is so overwhelming that he can say the dumbest shit you've ever heard. And you're like, "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir."
You're like, "Fuck, maybe, I guess."
Yeah, I guess his love for king and country does keep him warm.
Paul Bettany
Mine
is
doesn't.
skeptical.
My hatred for king and country keeps me fucking warm. Let me tell you that.
Well, my new video is about this. I might like my country if it just fucking liked me back.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I exist in a complicated and somewhat abusive dom-sub relationship with my country.
This is nothing, and it's an aside on an episode that's going to be too long anyway, so cut this if you want to, Tom.
It's going to be 3 hours.
I was watching the Business Insider things about a rare kind of salt, and they were interviewing this person who makes this this salt, right? No, it's such good watching, genuinely. They're so expensive and still standing on Business Insider. Wonderful.
Yeah.
But she was talking about how her government had put in a bunch of legislation to try to protect the traditional trade that she was a part of, and she looks at the camera and says so genuinely, "My government wants me to be able to make a living doing this," and I punched the wall and was like, "Wouldn't it be fucking nice to have any amount of confidence that your government likes you, wants you to keep doing what you're doing,
wants you to keep
Socialism
breathing,
with a human
wants
face.
you to live?" I don't know, things like that. Anyway,
but so he expresses skepticism, as you say, and then what happens is that Dr. Maturin gets weeviled on.
He gets
fucking clowned on, dude.
Yeah.
I genuinely would fucking walk off the side if someone hit me with this shit.
Yeah, it's a shitty pun because Aubrey he makes puns. He does this. It's one of two things he does, along with fuck up proverbs. And yeah, he shows him two little weevils that are crawling out of their horrible bread, and he's like, which one would you choose? And he leads Maturin up the garden path of being really looking at these fucking weevils.
He's like, "Well, if you had to choose one, which would you do?" And Maturin naturally goes, "Well, I'd choose this one because it's a more robust weevil. It's slightly longer, probably stronger."
"Got your ass. Do you not know? He's sort of like cracking up in the midst of this. In the service, you must always choose the lesser of two evils.
Everyone around the fucking
Just
captain's table goes insane.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
It's over for Maturin. He's done.
You can make these kind of jokes when you're the captain, and everyone's just like, it's so funny. No, like, and then Maturin's just like, fuck off.
It could be bullying so easily, but the fact that Maturin takes it in kind of baffled good grace is
just be like, shit, you've really got me there somehow.
It's like, what? This is the thing that I do like about Maturin in this movie, is that he is baffled by everything nautical and is just like, what? Yeah, what? Huh?
Yeah, there's a point later on where people cheer and he goes, clearly something very fascinating and nautical has just happened.
Yeah, it's very funny. So we also have to see, as the wardroom, as the mess are having dinner, so too are the ratings. And they're singing sea shanties.
Hell yeah.
And as Aubrey comes aboard, they stop singing just in time that poor Hollom, he joins in, and he is in this guilty of an excess of feeling. Officers do not sing, and you are not friends with your men, right? And this is the thing where he fucks up again. And Aubrey just kind of like lets it lie. Like, he just goes,
Well, yeah, because Paul Bettany has this great line where he's like, because Hollom starts joining in with the sea shanty, and all the men fucking stop because he sings like a pretty boy, and they even change the song.
He's an officer,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah. And Paul Bettany says, "What a wonderfully true voice Mr. Hollom possesses," and then the captain's just like, "Indeed."
Oh, Mr. Hollom.
Brutal. The crew will remember this.
Yeah. Also, Mr. Brain Surgery Man, who had his brain surgeoned earlier on by Paul Bettany, who was not wearing gloves, speaks at this point. He was not expected to survive, and at this point, he like starts mashing up the
poor
Bible.
Tentous piece of shit.
This motherfucker. This guy gets his brain operated on. It's really good. All the guys are stood around. He's doing this operation on the deck to get full daylight on it, and he's just like takes a slot out of this guy's skull. He gets it trepanned with one of those, like you can buy to take a big wadge out of something. Anyway.
Yeah.
And everyone stood around, they're all looking at him, and they're going like, he's so fucking good. This guy's great. Meanwhile, it cuts in, and he's like, pass me the spoon.
Yeah.
As they note, though, he is like unusually gifted for a naval surgeon, where your average naval surgeon is like closer to barber than surgeon at this point.
Where they're like, he wouldn't charge us less than 10 guineas if we were on land. That was one of the lines, I think.
I always have a soft spot for surgeons in any fiction because my dad was one. So if there's ever a surgeon, I'm just like, that's the good guy.
You should read the novels. Stephen Maturin, he's an interesting surgeon. But yeah, this is the guy with the hold fast tattoos. By the way.
And at this point, sail ho!
Yes, sail detected.
We've picked up something on long-range scanners, Captain. Long-range scanners being my eyes.
But there's a scene earlier on where we find out why the Surprise survived all the cannon bolts and things like that. Because
the Acheron, you mean?
The Acheron. The Surprise is, of course, the boat that's the protagonist. The Acheron, why it survived all of that shit is because it's got a thick hull, and we find this out because during the peace, one of the guys on the ship was in Boston for a wedding, and he happened to see the Acheron out of water, and he described it to one of his other boys, who built a perfect little model of it, and they go and give that
so good
to the captain. And I'm like, lads, this is beautiful. Thank you so much.
This is Worley and Nagel. By the way,
they're kissing.
Don't get attached.
Don't get attached, but they are kissing.
Yeah, they are also fucking on each other. But yeah, so they learn that like this is why the Acheron is like unusually fast and sort of unusually strong. And
Aubrey's like in love with it. He's my note is that the Navy requires every captain's special interest be boats, because he's like holding it up and he's like, look at it, it's bluff above the sea line and trim below it. This is the future, boys. What fascinating times we live in.
Yes.
And I'm like, hell yeah, man. Anyway, sorry.
No.
Might I say the Acheron is Galaxy class, the Surprise is California class.
They get ambushed by the Acheron
Yeah,
again.
the Acheron drops out of warp. It was hiding behind a moon, and they pick it up.
We have a fantastic bit where he Aubrey uses his telescope and he sees his glass and he sees the captain of the Acheron on his foredeck looking at him with his. And this is the thing, right? This is another relational aspect of masculinity. I think people are mistakenly but understandably jealous of the male friendship in this movie. This is male enemyship. This is male enmity, and this is honestly so. But if you're if you're in a sword fight with a guy and he's like, I knew this day would come, fantastic. Yeah, it's also gay as fuck. I think often about the Kate Beaton comic where you have the duel with the pirate and the guy sort of like his doublet splits open. He's got a locket with your face around his neck, and you're like, my god.
I think you're spending all day and night thinking about another guy, like
because
you think about the enemy pirate captain. You're like thinking about him, and you're like, this guy's good. He's fucking outplaying me. He's got a great ship. I love this guy. I want to kiss him. Actually, a little.
I do like that Aubrey just under his breath says, "This is the second time he's done this to me. There will not be a third."
Alice, you can have an enemy if you're a woman. Like you can have an.
Oh, I do.
You can have a female nemesis. I know you do. Yeah.
I do.
It's a different kind of psychosexual, I think, to have a female nemesis than to have a male one.
I hope she wears a locket with my face on. So
I know she does not.
Send my enemy one.
At this point,
I know she does not anymore.
Aubrey deploys what I have taken to calling Lucky Jack's child endangerment raft.
I wrote the They Go Scrap Heap challenge on his ass.
They put him in a shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
I am going to keep doing this even if neither of you
I haven't seen much Star Trek, but keep it going. It's good stuff.
They create a shuttlecraft and they have like little lanterns and barrels on this like makeshift raft, and they stick a junior officer on it. I think it's Wally.
Callamy. It's Callamy again.
Yeah. They cut it loose and then it has like lanterns on it, so it looks like the back of their ship, and it allows them to slip away into the dark. It's very clever.
Yeah, and Callamy does a fantastic job. He like swims back. He's very brave. Everyone's very proud of him. He again looks about 16. My next note for this is just it's not even plot related. It's just that I note all the officery stuff in this, as I do every other movie. And there's a bit later on where like one of the sailors makes some sarcastic joke, and one of the midshipmen goes like, "Yes, thank you for that, Davies." And it's just like, teaching, being a naval officer, the handshake meme, you just cut the wind right out of someone with some like light sarcasm.
It's great. It's good fun.
The men are superstitious about the Acheron. In particular, Mr. Brain Surgery is like, oh, it's the Phantom,
Mr.
it's the devil's.
Such a fucking asshole.
It's the devil's
Mr. Brain
ship.
Surgery is kind of Bible obsessed and superstitious, and Mr. Brain Surgery identifies that the problem is that they have a Jonah, and the problem with it, so they have someone aboard who is bringing bad luck, like the prophet Jonah, and therefore we must throw him off the ship, like the crew of Jonah's ship did to Jonah, where he got eaten by a whale. Well, again, he was a prophet, whatever. I don't think they're getting the correct biblical lesson, but they want to, they gotta find this guy and they gotta throw him off.
But this plan using the shuttlecraft kind of works, because in the morning they've like snuck around the back of the Acheron, and now they have the weather gauge advantage, and they're hunting them down. Ha!
This is really stirring stuff. This is for me the best action bit of the movie.
Yeah, chasing them.
They chase them around Cape Horn.
Yeah. Is that what does that mean? Other than there's a big storm. I know where it is, but what does that mean in like? Why is that significant?
Okay, so there's two capes, the Cape of Good Hope and Cape Horn. If they're trying to go around, I may have forgotten which cape it is, right? I think it's Cape Horn.
I'm going to pull this up.
But they're trying to go around it because the Acheron wants to enter the Pacific.
It is Cape Horn.
And if they round Cape Horn and enter into the Pacific, they will have like uninterrupted access to sink, burn, pillage, and take as a prize the entire British whaling fleet in the Pacific, which is going to give a huge economic advantage to Napoleon in the war against the British.
Oh yeah, I guess like if you've got the one warship in the whole fucking sea, that's your sea,
that's
baby.
Basically it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. They've found themselves in this kind of like situation where they are like the Battle of Samar, where they are unexpectedly the last line of defense. And the thing about the capes is by virtue of position and geography, they have extremely rough seas, all the time, extremely strong winds. They are famously very difficult and very unpleasant to navigate. To the point that you know, it's one of the things that you can kind of get like bragging rights for as a sailor. Again, in Royal Navy mess stuff, if you're not allowed to put your elbows on the table unless you're rounded, you get one elbow per cape. So if you have rounded Cape Horn, you get to put one elbow on the table. If you've rounded Cape Horn on the Cape of Good Hope,
you would do nothing but putting that elbow on the table, though. When you just sit down, just like,
oh, I'm yeah, just
how
we doing, everyone?
You can kneel on the table.
yeah.
I've got around 3 capes. I've been around.
These scenes are so cool when they're like sailing through the storm and everyone's like pulling on the ropes and like the wind machines and the rain and stuff. I've made a note here that I can't read out loud. But yeah, this scene's fucking rock.
I love a heavy sea. I love them. So yeah.
For a second, I thought you meant like the word cunt.
Yeah,
well, we do.
We love a heavy sea.
We do love a heavy sea, to be fair, here on the Kill James Bond podcast.
We do.
So Worley, Seaman Worley, the one who happened to see the Acheron being built. He is he's captain of the mizzen top. Right, what that means.
You don't want
is
to be captain of the mizzen top.
Yeah. It means he's got to be up in the top, like a masthead bit.
He's the guy whose vomit is falling on you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And the mizzenmast, which has been repaired by at sea rather than going into the rainforest to completely replace it, and which the carpenter, Mr. Lamb, says, I will not vouch for this around the Cape, snaps. And Worley is hurled into the ocean.
Yes. An important point is that Mr. Holland was just asked to go up and assist him.
Yes, yeah.
And he gets halfway up before it snaps. So
this isn't Holland's fault. He hesitates for a second. He's being asked to climb the mizzenmast in like a force 11,000 gale. It's impossible to ask of him.
I gotta tell you, I'd hesitate. I'm not even a little fruity boy, and I'd hesitate.
Well, it's kind of lucky that he does. It's not like it would have done anything if he. I mean, he would have been killed
just
too
been
if
in the sea as well.
Yeah.
Yes, but that everyone hears him be ordered to do it, and everyone sees him hesitate. Is the thing.
Yes,
and once again,
they
the
like
crew will remember this. Worley is popular. Yes.
Yeah, because he's a 10 out of 10 twink.
Yeah, so the 10 out of 10 twink, he's like he's trying to swim to the wreckage of the mizzenmast so he can like sort of climb back aboard. And the wreckage it's acting as a sea anchor. It's turning the ship off course. And this will doom the ship. The ship will founder. If it sort of like tacks wrongly here.
Aubrey's being informed that he needs to choose now whether like if they're going to have to sacrifice that one guy in order to save the rest of a ship.
Needs of the many. Again, leadership commands about making the hard decision.
He orders it cut loose.
He does it himself
as the male
too.
fantasy, the thing is, it's the fantasy is that you are Aubrey in this and not Worley, right?
Yes.
So if
God, I knew you would 100% be Worley. I gotta tell you,
dudes
I know
rock.
my place.
Yeah, Worley is drowned, of course. And
well, actually, not to bring up Star Trek again, but like that we see in Star Trek Lower Decks what happens if you are not Aubrey in this, but you are a friend of Worley's, because like part of Mariner's arc in the latest season of Lower Decks is being like, no, Captain Picard fucking sent my friend to her death. I fucking hate that dude.
Yeah.
You never hear from the red shirts. They're probably pretty mad about this stuff.
Yeah. So they have to cut him loose, and he dies.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he survived, floated on the wreckage, and went to Brazil and shagged.
To Tierra del Fuego? Not you don't want to.
The crew are kind of like listening in as Aubrey talks to Maturin about this, and Aubrey knows perfectly well that the crew are going to sort of take this poorly. He knows that they have to do it, and he sort of asks Maturin, have you heard any kind of like stirrings? Because mutiny is a real possibility on a Royal Navy vessel. This is the first time where anyone acknowledges that these guys are not there voluntarily, by the way. And Maturin says,
You see, I'm rather understanding of mutinies. Men pressed from their homes, their chosen occupations, confined for months aboard a wooden prison.
Stephen, I profoundly respect your right to disagree with me here in this cabin, but I can only afford one rebel on this ship.
which is really getting to the heart of it, isn't it? Your non-violent or non-directly violent masculinity is only acceptable as an indulgence or an amusement,
Mhm.
or something that facilitates the kind of the social reproduction of the the hierarchy as it is, right?
But Paul Bettany says, the men would be loyal to you always. But, considering that we are kind of outgunned on the Acheron anyway, maybe we should have turned back a few weeks ago when we had the chance. Is this really about your duty to country, or has this become personal for you? And Captain Jack denies that it's personal.
Although he does admit that he has exceeded his own orders.
Yeah, this is where I guess he was only told to follow them as far as Brazil. He's exceeded his orders weeks ago, he says.
As he says, it is subject to the requirements of the service.
Yeah,
this
is one of those moments like Maturin's like, well, I mean, hey, are you asking me if I've heard any whisperings as your friend or as a member of your crew? Because if I'm a member of your crew, I would say there's nothing I hate more than an informant. It's interesting the dual role here that Maturin has to play. To Aubrey.
More interesting if you make him a spy, read the novels. But yeah, so ultimately, Nagel, Worley's boyfriend,
yes,
having sort of now believed more strongly than ever that Hollom is the Jonah, is insubordinate to him. He doesn't salute him. He shoulder checks him, and actually there's a thing before this. There's one last aftershock before this, which is when they're God, what's the word? When they're holy stoning the deck, Hollom is sort of supervising, and he hears them talk about him negatively, and to impugn his command or whatever, and he backs down. Again, horror, right? You have to, jump on this stuff immediately, and he doesn't, because he's scared and because he feels guilty, and so of course it escalates, and sort of Nagel is insubordinate to him. Aubrey picks it up immediately, because again, to be the captain of a Royal Naval vessel in the 1805, you have to be constantly alive to the possibility of mutiny, right? And he's like, no, I have to have him flogged.
Fastest man in irons.
Sorry, I think we've skipped forward massively here.
Have we?
Yeah, none of that happens until they go to the Galapagos. After.
Oh god damn it! Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. I've fucked up my.
To be honest with you, the thing is that I had such a good time watching this movie that I actually don't have a ton of notes. One of my notes here is just okay, man. I don't know what the fuck that was about. I know exactly what that was about. Actually, I'll say it when I get to
No, okay, fine.
Okay,
so we'll book this for later.
Yeah.
The point is that for now, Hollom is kind of he is a marked man.
Yeah.
He has failed to confront this thing that is brewing against him again.
I mean, this movie is very long, and it does sort of hammer home the same sort of points. So we could probably breeze through this bit fairly quickly. So they go around the Cape, and then the captain's like, "Yo, bet you 10 quid they're going to the Galapagos Islands because there's fuck all else out here." Right.
Yeah.
So that's where they're going to be. We're going to go there, and Mr. Paul Bettany is like, "Yo, I'm Charles Darwin hasn't been invented yet, but I think maybe I could invent Charles Darwin because I'm an amateur naturalist."
An amateur naturalist, yeah. And I think Maturin as a naturalist kind of verges on the profound, right? Together, these two men are a dialectic which will deliver the world we live in, right? For better and worse. You have the scientific rational, and you have the kind of martial that you can plug it into whatever fucking dichotomy you want of Dionysian, Apollonian, all this shit, right? But yeah, no, Maturin has a really sweet joy of discovery, right? And so the second he's like, we're going to the Galapagos, he comes up on deck in his gay little kimono.
Yeah. And
Not to be
Russell
pretentious,
promises
but Itchy
him...
and Scratchy compose a dramaturgical dyad.
That's true.
Russell
They do.
promises him a few days on shore.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then at this point, we get this fun scene where it's just Mr. Blakeney is talking to Paul Bettany, and Paul Bettany's telling him about insects that disguise themselves as sticks or as thorns or whatever.
Phasmids.
And we get this line which is just evolution, because Mr. Blakeney's like, does God make them change? And Paul Bettany's like, yes, God does make them change, but do they also change themselves?
That's right. And I wrote, okay, man.
And again, it is heartbreaking that Blakeney's two sort of surrogate parents, right? His mum and dad are Aubrey and Maturin. And Blakeney is sort of better off as a scientist,
Yeah.
right? But already he belongs to the Royal Navy.
Mm.
And so as much as he can be interested in these things, it's not kind of, it's something that is kind of like foreclosed on him.
When we get to the Galapagos, there's all sorts of lovely critters. There's marine iguanas and flightless cormorants, which Paul Bettany is particularly taken with. But
Nat Geo ass stock footage of iguanas.
But they pick up some castaways who were whalers who were sunk by the Acheron, and they're like, "Oh, she was here a couple of days ago." And immediately the captain's like, "No, fuck, we're not going ashore. Sorry, I'm breaking my promise to you. We've got to go and do more war."
Subject to the requirements of the service.
Yeah, they have this argument, and it's just like war comes first. / you never pay attention to my hobbies.
Yeah,
It's
they
gay.
have
It's
this
so gay.
conversation
It's the
about
fight
this.
in the rom-com, yeah.
They have the conversation about this. Like, they're like, well, I mean, this is important. Like, this is you promised this shit to me, man. Like, I don't know why you would do this. And eventually, Aubrey snaps and he yells, "We do not have time for your hobbies.
Your damned hobbies, sir."
hobbies, sir."
Yes.
He uses the big D.
He does use the big D. So he goes off and sulks. And you're like, damn, are they ever going to get back together?
So they chase the Acheron off into the sea and immediately get becalmed.
Yeah, they are get becalmed, idiot. Is my name. So
I'm afraid you informed me that you had 0 jokes in your notes.
Yeah, I did, but I wrote down "get becalmed, idiot."
This is the point where the men are like, "Yo, Hollum's the Jonah," and this is where
I'll tell you who's becalmed us.
Yeah, this is where Wally, or whatever the fuck he's called, shoulder clocks him and then gets flogged as a result.
Nagel
shoulder
Wally's
checks
dead.
him. And Aubrey's only means of restoring discipline, and again, this is against Maturin's objections, and Maturin objects as a kind of like Enlightenment liberal that this is it is brutal, which he concedes, and Aubrey's like, no, men must be governed.
Yeah. Comparison to Napoleon.
This is not anarchic.
Yeah.
Again, hits different in the books when you realize that Maturin started out as a Catalan, like anti-Bonapartist rebel. But yeah, so there is one way of like restoring naval discipline, which is to have Nagel flogged. It is not filmed as horny, not intentionally.
No,
it is horny, but not intentionally.
They only give him 12 lashes, and
yes,
is that a lot? Sharp had 100.
I feel like it's a lot when you're getting lashed.
I mean,
I've been lashed.
Naval lashes.
Cat of nine tails. I don't know.
Yeah, true.
Naval lashes are different. There's different provisions based on like age and stuff, which is a sort of uncomfortable thought given some of the ages going on here. But yeah, no, it is something that potentially could kill you. And once you're getting into lashes in double digits, you're into the like that you will not be a sailor anymore because you are, kind of dead. So this is sort of
you
much of
need the back muscles to do a lot of the sailing stuff because it's involves a lot of pulling.
Oh yeah, if those have been flayed, then
plausible stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he is flogged. And then again, in the kind of command horror story here, Aubrey sends for Hollum and tries to.
He doesn't get it, man. He doesn't fucking get it.
Okay, so this is what you would call in the argot an interview without coffee. It's something that you might see preceded with the words "Your hat, my office now." It's gentler than it could be, right? It is clearly like this is a bad business. Like you have fucked up serially here. In order that it has for it to have come to this, you have fucked up so bad.
You have allowed an immense amount of insubordination to already happen, and you have to put your foot down so hard now in order to stop this.
Yeah, and not by being a tyrant, but by like having self-confidence.
Yeah, and we see Hollum, like we see his face, and my boy is thinking, I can't do that.
No.
He's like not in a position where I
don't
can
have self-confidence.
do that.
Yeah. Hollum, by the way,
he's gay. He's fucking gay.
Yeah,
But so is the captain.
Yeah,
he's
but
still
he's a different kind of fruitier gay.
He's still a midshipman at almost 30, which is sort of
He's failed
almost
to
scandalous.
pass for lieutenant twice. We hear.
Yes, yeah, and it's not because he's a bad sailor, as Aubrey says. It's because he's a bad officer, right? He doesn't have the quality of leadership within him. Something I used to worry about a lot.
For a guy like me, would love to just be one of the sailors.
Yeah, you
Also, you do.
You don't have this ability. Thank you.
I can tell. You're leading this very well.
To lead people.
And it's not like they gave them leadership training back then. It was very much a kind of because if you are somebody who does not have it in you to lead other people nowadays, you can learn how to do that. There are like techniques and classes that you can do, and like some people are
you can
talented.
find in any airport.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some people have a talent for it, but leading people is a skill, and managing a team is a skill. But back then, it was just like, no, you're a gentleman. You should be born with this, and if you don't have it, there must be something fucking wrong with you.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. And that thing that's wrong with him, by the way, is being gay. To be clear,
just
want to be so clear.
He just wants to be liked, and then the council's like,
yes.
they're not supposed to like you. They're supposed to
You are
respect
not friends with your men. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
they have a parasocial relationship with you. They do not really know you.
This is exactly the problem that I would have as well. Is I'd be like, well, I want the men to like me. I want the men to think I'm their mate. But you can't let that happen because they'll call you a Jonah and throw you off the boat.
That's right. But so what happens is that he goes back and the crew reproach him by way of like obsequiousness, dumb obedience, by like sort of very, very elaborately saluting him every time he goes past. Which again is a thing you can clamp down on, but he doesn't. He walks through this gauntlet of men saluting him to the point of having a panic attack. Where he goes and he hides in the gun room from this. And again, I write, the dudes still rock. Right? Is this a healthy set of male relationships?
Checking in on the dudes rock guys here. How are we feeling about this?
they seem to be pretty steady, actually, immobile. In fact, there's not a lot of rocking going on. The dudes are becalmed.
The dudes are becalmed.
And so the next dog watch, he comes up and it's Blakeney's watch because Blakeney has to be witness to this. And he's like, you're always very kind to me. This is a system of social reproduction that is based on violence.
We also see that below decks, like they are going, like Mr. Brain Surgery has decided that now is time to finally be like, it's him. We all know it's him. He's the Jonah.
Phantom appeared on his watch, like he was about to go up the mast when fucking whatever his face drowned. Like
like this. Both times he's been on watch, the Phantoms appeared. He went up the mast. Like I guarantee you, if he's on watch tomorrow, we're going to see that boy again.
When Maturin actually confronts Aubrey when he says, you believe this?
Yeah,
You are also falling prey to this superstition.
And Aubrey says, just like he dismisses it by going, some things are beyond science, and leaves. And he believes this. He thinks that Hollom is somehow a Jonah. And when
Hollom goes to the doctor, and then poor Bentley's like, there's nothing wrong with him, but he believes he's cursed. And the captain's like, no, maybe he is. It's like, what?
And when
Hollom for a curse
goes up on the deck to relieve Blakeney of his watch, Blakeney's like, I'm sure it'll start blowing again tomorrow. And Hollom goes, I'm sure it will. And you get the impression he has elected, rather than allowing the crew to like lynch him, that he is going to do it himself. Yeah. But he continues this quite congenial conversation with Blakeney while he picks up a cannonball and he goes, "You're always very nice to me, Blakeney. Thank you. Goodbye." And then he just steps off the side and fucking sinks down into the inky depths, and there's this horrifying shot of him looking up at the camera as he disappears into blackness. And you go, "The dudes rock! I ask you now, will you condemn the dudes?"
The New Yorker film critic Anthony Lane wrote, "We feel ourselves to be in good company with these men and strangely jealous of their packed and salted lives."
You idiot!
GQ asked, wouldn't it feel satisfying to spend each day doing industrious and meaningful ship work?
It's certainly industrious. Is it meaningful? Whether or not this is meaningful is one of the central tensions of the film. Who fucking hires these people? And then they have the fucking gall to turn around and say that film criticism is over. Looks like it didn't fucking begin, actually.
We're the only ones doing
it.
So
we invented film criticism. We aren't the modern day Siskel and Ebert. Siskel and Ebert with a proto-kill James Bond.
Agreed.
But yes,
right,
as former public schoolboy here, I relate very deeply to the idea that, like, no, this is a regimented, traumatic institution, and it is meet to question what the fuck is it doing here? What is the point of this system? And the answer is, I guess, Napoleon?
Yeah.
Question mark.
I'm sorry, if it allows for this and has no capacity to like stop this when it's already going, then it's fucked. Like the
Sink that
system's
shit.
completely broken.
And so
He jumps out of the airlock.
Yeah, he does.
Aubrey leads the funeral.
All the souls I've encountered in my travels, this was the most human.
Yeah. And there's a line in here which, again, right, this is very, very personal to me because that, like, again, this, not with the Navy because fuck boats, right? But this was something that I wanted to do, and I used to agonize about whether it was something that I could do or whether it would be disastrous like this. And Aubrey's line about Harlem is,
Simple truth is, not all of us become the men we once hoped we might be.
which I used to dread, and then it came true in a much stranger way than I could have anticipated.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Simple truth is, not all of us become the men we once hoped we would be. Some of us become better.
Quite frankly, that's the tagline for Kill James Bond.
Very, very strange to reflect on. But yeah, I watched this for the first time. Like when it came out, I was like 12 years old, and I was like, "Oh shit, fuck! I hope I don't become like that." And I guess not, you know. But yeah, so at which point, immediately after this, the wind picks back up again. So,
Maybe
what's
he
the
was.
word?
I don't know. Hard to know.
Yeah, superstition vindicated. No further questions. Curse is real.
Oh, I guess that guy was cursed. All right, moving on. Forget everything I said previously.
Good thing he's dead.
Yeah, thank Christ.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, it's actually.
We'd have all felt very silly if he hadn't killed himself and the wind had picked up. Just kidding. We would have picked something else to go wrong to blame him, and then he would have driven himself to suicide regardless, because that's the way the system operates.
Love superstition.
Dudes rock.
So, dudes rock. So yeah,
Is this what you wanted, dogs?
They stopped being becalmed. Oceans are now battlefields.
Oceans are battlefields again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thank God.
Yeah, and so there's an albatross following them.
Mm-hmm.
And Captain Howard, I tell you who doesn't come off well in this movie is the Royal Marines.
Yeah.
The bootnecks. So yeah, no, Howard's just trying to shoot this albatross and he misses and he shoots
He
Paul
hits Paul
Bettany.
Bettany with the phaser.
Because Paul Bettany's running around the deck looking at the albatross in absolute wonder.
Engaged,
Whereas,
having wonder.
he gets shot. He gets fucking shot.
Shot in the guts. And at this point, Higgins, his assistant medical officer, is like nervous and is unqualified to like fix the fucking ship's doctor, who we kind of need.
Like, fuck.
Yes.
Jack looks through the glass. The Acheron is in sight. They have found it, but Jack lets it go.
Yeah,
And he turns back to the Galapagos.
Should we beat to quarters? And he like puts it down. He goes down. He looks at Paul Bettany and he goes, "No, we're not doing it."
Yeah. Some great sickness makeup on Paul Bettany, by the way. They really do a good pale on this.
Yeah, my boy's looking.
My man's in hypovolemic shock, is what
The
he's in.
self-surgery scene is like fantastic. Really good pain acting
Doc Holliday.
from
Yeah,
Paul Bettany.
so yeah,
Yeah,
great
this
love
is
hath no
fucking sick.
man.
Let's talk about this for half an
This
hour.
This is like male friendship thing where he like puts the ship, he like puts everybody ashore in order to do the surgery. Where it's not rocking, because that's what the surgeon's mate has asked him
Dudes
for.
are
and
not
then,
rocking.
Yeah, exactly. So he's
we
not
got around
rocking.
these dudes.
And then as Bennett, the surgeon's mate, is about to like incise, Maturin's like, no, I will do this. I know what I'm doing.
He says, "I do this by my own hand," and then he performs surgery on himself, which
hardcore.
did not hit even slightly to a transgender person like myself. It's transgender as fuck. I'm sorry.
he makes Aubrey help him, and there is a fun moment that alludes to something that keeps coming up in the book, which is that Aubrey, despite being a sort of a fighting captain, it is kind of sickened by the sight of blood and surgery. And so he is like visibly very uncomfortable, and you see Maturin notice this about him and sort of
laugh.
like smile
He
to
checks
himself.
in on him. He goes like, "You doing all right?" While this guy is performing surgery on himself.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so
Ice cold. This is so like the central relationship between Aubrey and Maturin, right? It is not frictionless. It is not even healthy necessarily. It plays a central part in reproducing a fucked system but it is very intimate, right?
Yes.
Romantic.
And as Paul Bettany is recovering from the surgery, which succeeds, he's like, "Oh, how long are we got to get after the Acheron, surely?" And then Captain Jack's like, "No, actually, let it go. We're going to head home in a couple of weeks. Take as much time as you want to go wandering and look at the animals."
He says, before peace breaks out, God forbid.
So he goes, I don't even know if that was the Acheron. Let's head back, man.
This kind of should have been the end of the film, I think. Should have been the end of like, well, okay, we've had our character growth, we've learned our lesson.
Yeah, but instead...
We get to have some fun scenes where Paul Bettany looks at animals, which I love.
Yeah, this is sweet. Like I said, it doesn't really engage with like novel material, but it does sort of do some like Age of Discovery stuff.
Paul Bettany secures the bag in that movie where he played Charles Darwin.
Yeah, he and Blakeney comes with, and is sort of like learns to identify some beetles and stuff. And of course, as he goes over the last hill in pursuit of this fucking bird, he sees a two-deck frigate with a giant French flag.
Shit.
It's the Acheron.
Acheron's on the other side of the island, baby.
And both men are forced to give up something important to them in order to safeguard the interests of the other,
and the Empire. Because he has to leave all the samples and let all the animals go in order to run back, so he doesn't get to discover evolution and be Charles Darwin. So he has to run back to the boat.
They're dropping all of the fucking cages to leave him, and he looks back and he goes, open the cages. Like, it's clear that he has given up on bringing these samples back to science.
Yeah.
And they go back and they tell Captain Jack, the Acheron's here, and the chase is on. And as they're doing this, we get this nice scene where I think probably Russell Crowe's intention, the character's intention in this scene, was to come to the cabin and say, "Thank you for allowing me to continue my war. I love you." But instead, we just get the scene. He's like, "Sorry, you won't be able to take your animals back." And he's like, "No, it's fine. We did get this one."
It's the phasmid.
It's the Insulindian phasmid. That's right.
Yes, I also wrote that down.
It's a stick insect that disguises itself. I hope this doesn't have any great repercussions for you. And Aubrey goes,
Aubrey's like, has a fucking idea.
Yeah. Because he's wily.
They're still outgunned, of course.
There's a beautiful moment I want to highlight here, which is where Blakeney, he's doing his illustrations of a naturalist kind of thing, and he draws a seal, and we get this beautiful shot where he looks at the seal and it goes like, and he writes "arg" next to the seal on his notes. It's very, very
childlike.
Sweet. It really highlights how young this fucking guy is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But so Aubrey realizes the value of science. It makes you better at war. He says this more or less verbatim. Interesting. What if we simply disguise the surprise as a whaler? Because we've got whalers on board. We know how to do it. We'll set some fire below deck, and we'll have it vent up like it's the rendering works of a whaler.
Because the primary difference between the two of them, as discussed earlier, is that it can take more cannons and it can fire its cannons further than a surprise can. So by drawing it in, you get rid of that advantage. You can just fire it point blank on it.
Exactly.
That's right.
Very cool.
Nice.
They even put on costumes. Yeah.
The fake whaler.
The fake whaler.
And we see him arranging stuff and sort of briefing ahead of time. And he gives Calamy, this sort of 16-year-old, command of the boarding party. And his first officer, Pulling, so who we know that he has served with and come up with, is like, are you sure about this? Is he not too young? Are you sure he's ready? And he goes, were you ready? And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, this is just it's the generational trauma show. We just, all of these guys were doing this shit when they were teenagers, and are now doing this to teenagers further. And bizarrely, the only way out of this thing is through finding out about stick insects and then discovering evolution. And again, leads you to sort of more profound stuff. Anyway, trauma.
Blakeney is disappointed that he won't be in the boarding party because Calamy says, "No, you'll be staying behind. I've decided not to take you on the away team because it's bad. You're too young."
Because you're too young to be a child officer.
And Blakeney blatantly complains to the captain, and the captain's like, "No, I'll give you a special job instead, young man. Like, you'll sit on Santa's knee when I go aboard the enemy ship. How about that?" Or like,
Still very much in the battle.
yeah.
Yes.
Stay on board, and you'll take command of our ship when I'm on the other one. How about that, son? And it's like, "Oh, great."
That's nice. Acting captain. He goes, whoa.
Yeah.
So at this point,
Sit in the chair and everything.
Aubrey sort of anticipates the Q ship, which is a First World War invention.
I thought you meant
and
like
they-
from the Continuum. I was
It's
like,
closely
what?
007.
Like John Delancey is going to be in this fucking film, is he?
They were disguised as
Isn't closely
civilian
007. It looks like an
cargo-
ordinary whaling vessel, but if you get too close, you'll find out
It'll blow your fucking face off.
it's actually King George's finest. Or Edward, or whatever the fuck it was.
And
That's my two guesses. I'm sure it's one of those.
King George, I believe.
Hey, wonderful.
It was actually King Victor. It was that weird 2 months where we had him.
So
Just gaslighting the audience about there being a King Victor.
the plan works perfectly. They lure the Acheron in. We hear a French voice, Frenchly being like, we are
this
going
is
to
where
evolve
The disgusting
The
French
French.
accent.
The vile French
goes,
slither their way into this film.
Bro, sounds like me during the OSS 117 episode intro.
I do not have healthy male friendships.
It's like, but you fucking stop
This is
running
like
away with this
Monty
Toyota
Python
ship.
ass shit like this. Yeah,
Genuinely, yeah, it's unbelievable.
So mine will say the French roll up.
They roll up on them.
Yeah.
And it works. We get a
They let it bark.
fantastic scene.
They do. They don't hesitate to let it bark.
I mean, Blakeney is forced to kill, apart from other things. Maturin is forced to fight.
Well, hang on a minute. Let's go beat by beat here. So the French
okay.
roll up.
Let's make this a 3-hour episode. Let's do it.
The
They
French
deserve
roll
it,
up,
quite
and the
frankly.
boys spring the trap. They fire, they topple the mainmast, and so they successfully like knack at the Acheron. The boarding
They
party.
take down its warp core or something.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Well, no, that would cause an anti-matter
We've had
explosion.
scenes earlier where
It's
they were like,
engined. It's engined.
Yeah, no, they don't. Well, they get through the shields, right? At which point the boarding party beam over, but the French have a trap of their own because they're all pretending to be dead. And
this is the
then they
oldest
all,
one in the book, quite
then
frankly.
they all spring up and are like, we are not dead after all. We have fooled you. And then they have a battle. And my notes say, so this battle sequence is one of two things is happening. A, this is not filmed and edited very well, so I can't tell what's happening. Or B, there is a deliberate choice to do that because this scene is meant to be chaotic. And
I think second. I strongly think second.
yeah, it would be weird if they got everything else right.
I was really fond of this one. I thought that was really well done. That you cannot tell anybody apart. It's sort of like very short kind of shots of brutal violence and sort of like mangled bodies and stuff. And yeah, no, it's very difficult to follow. You don't know who's really winning.
Yeah, as you say, Blakeney and
and-
Paul Bettany do have to beam over, and then they have to take out the French gun crew. And then like,
Maturin
they have
like
to kill.
runs a guy through with a sword.
Yeah,
And it's
Maturin's a
sort of like,
fencer, which is quite fun.
he is again the truth of the books. He's a duelist, you know.
Tiny French version of Bettany takes out one of the crew gay lovers. One of those ones.
The bad guy,
Nagel,
Nagel
yeah.
gets got by a tiny French child.
Yeah,
Tiny
the
French child.
sailing master
be like-
also gets got.
Yeah, he gets phasered right in the eyes.
Right in the fucking forehead.
And at this point, the captain is like, "Well, it looks like we've kind of won, but where is the Romulan captain?" And we learn is in sickbay.
He's dead.
He's dead.
There's a doctor. There's a French Maturin there who's just like, as the captain has died badly.
He was a
he wanted you to have his sword out of
Shit
loyalty.
his pants before he died.
Yeah.
You get a real sense that Aubrey is like genuinely quite desperately upset that he hasn't had a chance to talk to the captain because he's walking around a ship being like, is anyone here the captain?
I'm a
Please,
big
Christ.
fan. I've seen all his videos.
He gets he goes into the captain's room and a guy under the fucking table tries to kill him and he goes, "Are you the captain?" And the guy goes, "No," and he just like lets him go and just the guy
Throws his dagger out the window and
retreats
goes.
back to under the table. He's like, "Where's the fucking captain?" And we find that he's
Where's
died.
the captain? Yeah, he's dead. So they take Acheron as a prize, and he promotes Pullings as first officer to captain, gives him command of the prize.
But sadly,
But
Peter, what's his face, died. The leader of the boarding party, the 16-year-old, he died.
Calamy, yeah.
The first officer, Riker, he died. Dominic Monaghan, who is in this movie, we didn't mention him at all. He's also dead. He was the guy who he was driving. He was the ensign who was driving the ship.
Yeah.
And
The
so
guy
did
who never mentioned, Billy Boyd's in this as well, and he does a great job as well.
Wait, did I get my Dominic Monaghan's and my Billy Boyd's mixed up?
You might have gotten your Billy
I
Boyd's
think I
mixed
did.
up.
That's so embarrassing. I'm so sorry.
my.
No, you're right. You're right. That is
Yeah,
Billy
but, like-
Boyd. Fuck. I pippined when I should have married, or I married when I should have pippined. I'm sorry.
So many cases.
The guy who was flogged also dies. And then my notes say Blakeney stitches up Peter, and they do him like Bin Laden.
They do him
They
like
do him
Bin
like Bin
Laden, to be turned into corruption.
I kinda wanna be done by
the
him.
service of the dead.
Yeah, wanna be done like
this
Bin Laden?
one actually did make me kind of want to be buried at sea. I'm like, oh, you're right.
Being buried at sea, it's a good prayer is the thing. The Church of England gets uncharacteristically martial when it's like at sea.
Yeah, I thought about the concept of whale falls, and I think it'd be nice if I was one. You know,
You gotta get buried at sea.
Yeah.
But
I guess I have spent a lot of my time underwater already.
handing
all
a
right,
lot
collective
of
sea burial.
humus back to the it's the most like returned to the earth kind of thing you can do. Is like you're an
You got to do it
ecosystem
with
now.
like full, for me,
There's
for
bone worms
full
down
like
there.
stolen valor honors.
Oh yeah,
you know?
100%. Like you're an admiral.
With the pipes, yeah. But yeah, so it's again like you look at this kind of like butcher's bill, as Aubrey says for this, including the 16-year-old or whatever who is cut down before he can become like Aubrey. And you go, is this a movie about how dudes rock? Is this a movie about how this is a sort of a healthy, aspirational thing? I think perhaps not.
These dudes don't seem to rock, but as you say, he gives the Acheron to Pullings, promoted to captain, and then they part ways. He's like, well, we'll see you back in England. And as they go, they play some more music. And then Paul Bettany makes this offhanded comment like, I feel a bit sorry for them. The only ship's doctor they've got is Higgins, my guy, who's not really all that great. And then Captain Jack's like, oh no, they've got the French doctor too. And Paul's like,
Yeah, I spoke to him, weird accent.
yeah. Paul's like, no, he's been dead for months. I've read the ship's logs. He died of fever months ago. And they're like,
You're like, da-da-da-da.
Wiley.
Fucking what?
This
You
Wiley
piece of
motherfucker.
shit.
and then he's like, God damn it, that fucking doctor gave me the captain's sword and surrendered. He was the fucking Romulan
He
captain.
was the captain.
It's a classic Romulan
pulling
boy.
over there. I've just said pulling over there. He's fucked. Oh well, let's go ahead and beat
Let's
a
go
course.
after them. Yeah.
So the Galapagos
yeah.
will have to wait because it's fucking warp 9 after the Acheron. Let's fucking go.
Asteroid Commander 2 will come, and then it doesn't ever.
Oh, and it ends with a joke, which is, the bird you're looking for is flightless. It's not going anywhere. And their friendship sort of like rekindles over, in service to Empire, which is, I think, maybe more ambivalent than, I think had they had the thing that I wanted, another 20 movies to work that one out, I don't know. I think you could have gotten something really interesting there. Here, as an introduction to a franchise that never came, I find myself, having talked it over with two of my best friends, kinder and better disposed towards it than I had gone in. I was expecting to go in on this, having seen it, being like, this is literally unwatchable. Why does he pick up the port instead of slide it across the table? But no. It's interesting. I think it's a very well done distillation. And it's a bad adaptation, but I think it's a good movie.
Yes,
is my contention on this.
It's a good movie if you haven't read the books, I think, and which I haven't. And to be honest with you, I hadn't seen Master and Commander before this. It's one of those movies that I'd always meant to do, but since I figured we would do an episode about it at some point, it's one I've been holding off. And I did have a fantastic time with this movie. I had a really, really good time watching it. It is a very, very competently put together piece of cinema.
I like it because
stirring.
just like as an actor, game recognized game, like Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany give like fucking amazing performances in this. And it's really nice to, not to be too like movies these days is all like superheroes, but sometimes these days we cast leading men in particular for their looks and their ability to like play a character people already know. it's really nice to have a movie where it hinges that you have to have a fucking good actor in this. You could not have just I won't name names, but any old male actor who looks handsome could not play this role. You need guys who are fucking good at the craft, and it's nice to watch.
Something else I appreciate about this is the closeness of its narrative, and that is something that it owes to the books, in that you're not getting away from this ship, right? And it's not quite like some of the other stuff we've seen, like The Edge, for instance, which is this is a playwright's movie where it's been sort of written for a stage. No, it's very, very keen to put you in this closed system and investigate that system, and it's quite a holistic way of doing that. Which I really, really like. And I think there's too much temptation for writers particularly, to jump away from these things and to contextualize these things. And the furthest context you get in this is, beyond the opening shots, it's that one shot of the anchor while they're playing together. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is really, really good to keep the focus in that tightly on this one this one community, this one sort of piece of England at sea.
Yeah, because that's a direct comparison that Aubrey makes before the final fight, is that listen, we are here to fight for England against France. We are all English. This boat is England. That boat is France. This is a microcosm of the entire war, and that's how he gets everyone excited about it.
Yeah, and meanwhile, there's me being well, Napoleon. He's do you want to see a guillotine in Piccadilly? And I'm well,
good question, Barbara.
Napoleon had a complicated historical legacy, and
I'll watch the movie at some point, I'm sure.
We're all very much on Paul Bettany's side, I think.
Yeah, well, literally, yes.
Sometimes
you
sort of understand mutiny when the people in charge of your environment that you find yourself in are making decisions that you don't agree with in any reasonable way. There doesn't seem to be any way to hold them democratically to account. Sometimes you feel mutiny or armed resistance
who
even
control that environment also own slaves.
Justified, even. Yeah, I don't know.
Will you condemn
mutiny?
Able seaman Nagel?
I will never condemn Nagel, and there's no point trying to get me to.
Nagel exists within a historical context.
It's one of these things. You have to go back quite far in time to 1805 even to really see the start of this. Anyway, sorry.
Are we going to scum this, or is this a bonus?
Well, I think so. I mean, the thing is, just by way of
bonus.
Sort of
then no.
Closing remarks, I'll say that this for me articulated something that I've seen attempted in a lot of war movies, to varying levels of success. I think this clarifies this, I would say, about as well as I've seen, which is Generation Kill kind of did this as well, which is war can be fun, it can be stirring, it has these very strong, typically male friendships, but what you're using them to survive is inhuman at times. It's kind of if you had to put a really, really short button on it, it's dudes rock in the death machine.
Yeah.
Right?
Dudes rock as a response to being in the death machine to make it bearable, is what I would say.
But also the dudes rocking sustains the death machine.
Yeah, but the dudes rocking requires the death machine to exist as a prerequisite, so it must necessarily recreate the conditions of the death machine.
Your urge as a dude to rock can be easily suborned by the death machine.
Correct.
And I mean, this is at some point very, very soon. I want us to do a film called Fury, because I think Fury is the first and most influential fascist film of the 21st century. I think it's absolutely a kind of war film that tries to articulate that and goes, this is good, right?
Oh, hell yeah, we have
this is grimly necessary. The dudes must rock. Billions of dudes must rock.
Billions must rock. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in this, I think it's more ambivalent than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
And I think it's not. It's been done a disservice. I think it's been flattened by people who go, oceans are now battlefields. Yeah.
Whoa,
and it's
Napoleon's not in this movie. This is a movie about two nobodies who are in a big tiff. There's nothing to do with Napoleon. There's nothing to do with Nelson. They are half the world away. You're in the Galapagos suffering because you want to be like those people.
Also, the phrase
Yes.
"oceans are now battlefields" is
Parasocial relationship
horrible.
with Nelson.
Genuinely.
It's like a
Yeah,
horrible thing.
oceans shouldn't be battlefields.
I love the oceans, and I haven't been to many battlefields, but they mainly have bad vibes. Whereas the ocean is lovely and should not be a
Primarily, they have.
battlefield. Also, the ocean is most of stuff. You shouldn't have a battle on most of things.
60%
Most
of
of stuff is battlefields.
Most of stuff is battlefields. The vibes are mid. This is Master
We
and
cannot
Commander.
do a shirt with that on it. We cannot do a shirt
Master of
with most of stuff
1805.
is
Most
now
of stuff is battlefields. The vibes are mid.
Vibes is mid.
Master and Commander as rewritten by a woman millennial.
We'll make the sequel to this, sure, whatever.
Oh my god! Listen. Give me. I'm speaking directly to Hollywood here. Give me $infinity million. Give me the MCU money. Give me every actor in the world. I will make you the Aubrey Maturin series. I will cast Abby as Diana Villiers.
Shiny Bender, I'll be Aubrey. I don't give a shit.
I just want to be one of the crew. I don't even need to say anything. I just want to be there.
Yeah. I mean, people keep talking about doing a sequel. When they talk about doing a sequel, they often talk about adapting the reverse of the medal. Do not fucking adapt the reverse of the medal. The main emotional hit of that is dependent on you having read another 17 books. But people also talk about doing a prequel, which, yeah, fine. Listen, my message to Hollywood: do it again and do it properly. And put me in charge of it. Thank you. Goodbye.
Sign up to, if a billion of you sign up to Nebula, we could make that happen.
We can do this.
Yeah.
My
okay,
next project
fine.
after Dracula's ex-girlfriend is a sequel to Master and Commander.
Masters and
We're
Commander
really
2.
leveling it up here. It's Mistress and Commander.
I mean, listen, they made this for $150 million, which is a lot of money. But when you look at how much it costs to make Ant-Man fucking go up inside a dude's urethra or whatever, it's a bargain.
It's
almost.
cowardly, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess unless anyone has any closing thoughts,
We should say thank you for 5 million downloads.
thank you.
You know
Yes,
which dudes
very
do
much.
rock gender neutral? All of you.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
honor.
Go
It's an
reading
honor to
this.
be your commanding officers. We hope that you continue to have a parasocial relationship with us. Always remember that one time that we asked you to pass the salt.
Mhm.
I met Alice after a live show, and I always remember the thing that she said to me: "Get the fuck out of my way."
I buy one drink for one person per live show, just trying to gin up these kind of conversations about me.
No, I
You
don't.
get
I
them
don't
an
need a
extra
boat
ration
cloak.
of
My
grog.
love for podcast keeps me warm.
Having to execute one of the hogs to save the podcast because they're acting as a sea anchor.
I've been
If you
doing
come to
this
one of our live
once
shows
a
and
month.
act as a sea anchor, it's fucking over for you. Never act as a sea anchor at one of our shows.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you, genuinely though, for supporting all of us, for making it possible to do this. We hope you enjoy it. We will be back.
This movie kicks off the start of the holiday season for Killer James Bond. So the next free episode is Die Hard 2, which is a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas
And then after
movie.
that, it's Goldfinger with no notes.
Jesus
So
Christ.
pray for us. As we try to recall a James Bond movie where James doesn't do anything
Yeah.
apart from rape women. That's
right.
all he does in that movie.
That's it. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Permission to
Vast you.
disembark.
Yeah, permission granted. You can
Go
have some
ashore.
pipes, piping ashore. Yes.
Rum.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See ya. Thank you for listening to yet another episode of Kill James Bond. I'm going to get right into this because we've got a long list and I'm extremely grateful to all of you. Thank you so much for giving us 5 million downloads. And that's just on Podbean. I don't even know where that pulls that from. I don't know if that counts for listens on Spotify. I don't know if that counts for Apple Music. I don't know what that even means, quite frankly. But 5 million is fucking tons. So if that's not even all of it, that's fantastic as far as I'm concerned. And thank you, first and foremost, to everybody who has ever supported our show, even if you've just shared it with someone, if you've never given us a penny, like, you have been fantastic. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for making me able to do this as a job. It means the world. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank especially our £15 and above patrons. And those are Lo Bjornsdottir, Candy Fox, Freya Aloysius, Bitchy, Cat Wizard, Gustavo Lira, the Norwegian one, Thief, Robin Mienji. I definitely got that wrong, whatever. Let's go ahead and save us all a lot of time here by saying, if I get any of these wrong, please just message me a correction. I will incorporate that going forward. Thank you. Jack Holmes, Mike Berg, Hannah Oberhart, Nick Boris, Power Dad, Natamori, George Rohak, Kentucky Fried, Kami, Drone Lover, Yarrick, Melody, Mello Gonzalez, Labor Delenda Est, Callan, Bernie, J, Martindale, Trip, Library Hitman, Max Gamenhart, Jonathan Gerd, Mothman, Beef Crime, Jack Drummond, Kit Divine, Top O, Steve Widdershins, Maeve, Elia, Rosie Can't Fail, Helps and Horses and Men. That won't help you on the high seas, will it? Claire, Forrest L. Novell, The Project, Lenina, Emery, Commissar Ozymandias, Just the Worst, Hell, A Trans Robot, Joyce Uwu, Zan Hutchin, Lexibomb, Violet Cybra, Isopod Gal, Annie Ruby, Fresh Raspberry Jamming, Katie Brobst, Varatsuka, Bronan, Clarification, Noblesse Oblahai, John 2089, Connor's Cool Big Sister, Sergeant Jack Rome, Seng Shen, Alex, Liz Nash in Florinda, Florinda, interesting, Corvid Cultist, Wolfscott, Quinn Valeri, Grendel Growls, Al Irving, Wolfie, Philippa Smith, brackets Fruity, Finn Ross, Robert Greensmith, Electrova Cyber Puppy, Abigail, Loz Pycock, Mega Combi, Emily, Queen of Sloths, Turfseat Shit and Die Alone, Josh Simmons, Zoe Shepherds, Vey, Talkative Tiger, Lauren Bastin, and for everyone who comes after this point, I believe that you may have been being cut off by the Patreon thing. It only shows 100 names, and I never assumed that we would have more than that. So everyone who comes after this point may have been supporting us for months without a shout out. So I want to be very, very clear that thank you so fucking much to Jordan Y. Clementi, Norgie, Morgan Bird, Dr. Crispy, Aiden Brumsicle, Mitchell Kerno, Karis Ritnur, that's definitely not right, but fucking whatever, Finn, Friend Computer, Colton Manica, Connor Lung, Northernly, M. Keebler, Evelyn, your man in Japan. Why would you give me fucking something like this? Some sort of table building society, I don't know. Send me a pronunciation guide for that, thank you. Sebastian Sangverazi, Calvin H. Fry, send me a pronunciation guide for that as well, thank you. Rad Rat, Hecate, I don't know, shit. Ossie Tapio, Noah Suarez Sykes, a beautiful man, and the designer of the pins that I'm sure you will have bought by now. Sarah Halpin, just this guy, you know, moth-covered rock, Chris Bach. Oh my Jesus Christ, I shouldn't have tried to do all of these while I was drunk. Chris of some kind, Jack Fennell, Fennel probably, Christopher Wu, Ian Bede, Amazing, Marco, and the Nation, Eleanor Reeves Blampede, Oliver Jackson, Thomas Shaw, Annette, Roll History, Mistress, Angela, Alis, Reynolds, Brett, Mysterious Corsican, and Azria. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry for all of that. So, yeah, Kill James Bond is Alice, Abigail, and Devon. This is 5 fucking minutes long. Alice, Abigail, and Devon. Our producer is the wonderful Nate Bethay. Our editor is the beautiful Mr. Thomas O'Barney. Our website is by Tom Allen, and our art is by Matty Lujansky. And fucking here's to 5 million more, huh? Here's to 5 million fucking more. Mwah! I love all of you.